Shocking revelation, humiliated maid exposes truth, billionaire cancels wedding instantly. Sarah hurried down the opulent hallways of Maplewood Estates, the glimmer of chandeliers casting a glow over the marble floors beneath her tired feet. Today was the day of Jason Whitmore's grand wedding, a celebration that stirred excitement in the hearts of the guests, but an unsettling mix of fear and hope within her. As she polished the ornate silverware, her heart pounded. She knew secrets, dark secrets about the Whitmore family that could change everything for her and her tight-knit community. Her family relied on her paycheck. After her father's passing, it was Sarah who balanced the responsibilities of keeping a roof over their heads and providing for her single mom and younger sister. Time was a precious commodity, but each day in this lavish estate felt bittersweet. The lush greenery outside contrasted starkly with the gray struggles of her life. The Whitmores were idolized by Maplewood, dressed in glamour, but their charm masked damaging truths, the kind that stripped people like her of dignity. As she cleaned, the echoes of her neighbors' despair lingered in her heart. News had swept through town of families being uprooted, homes lost to rising rents threatening to sink the modest folk she'd known her entire life. Gone were the days of community, replaced with greed and empty smiles. It all tied back to Jason's engagement, built on a foundation of exploitation that the townsfolk turned a blind eye to. As Sarah stood before the gleaming glass doors, her resolve hardened. Would she really allow this facade to continue? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night before the wedding, an extravagant pre-wedding party overflowed with opulence. The music thrummed, laughter echoed, but Sarah felt like a ghost amidst the celebration. It was there she stumbled upon a conversation that would shatter her sense of loyalty. Dressed in perfectly tailored designer attire, Jason and his family flaunted their wealth, shielded by an illusion of benevolence. But whispers of recklessness and exploitation reached her ears, talk of deals that crushed local businesses, feeding off the very lifeblood of their community. Sickened, she felt a boiling anger rise within her. The wedding was meant to be a celebration, but it was built on corruption. The faces of her neighbors flashed before her, people who were desperate for help and respect. No more silence. No more turning away. As guests began taking their seats at the altar, an electric tension filled the air. Sarah's voice trembled as she strode forward, raw emotion surging through her. She stepped into their world of glamour, hearts pounding against the gilded frames and polished floors. "This isn't right," she called out as the gasps rippled through the crowd. The shock was palpable, and for a moment, the world froze. Would they finally see? Would they hear the cries of the hurting? She felt the weight of the community behind her. As Jason's expression shifted from joy to horror, Sarah knew the balance was tipping. Would they stand together, united against the truth, or crumble under the gilded lies? In that moment, a key figure from the shadows lingered, a hidden truth waiting to reveal itself. And as she stood there, one question remained: could forgiveness coexist with this unfolding truth, or would it shatter the newfound unity she was beginning to believe in? The murmurs in the crowd swelled like a restless tide, rippling through the sea of elegantly dressed guests. Faces that once shone with joy now bore expressions of disbelief and confusion. Sarah stood tall, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of history behind her. Every struggle, every injustice her community faced poured into that one moment. "Sarah!" Someone from the crowd called out, but the noise blurred into a distant hum. She could hardly process the thrill of being heard. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. As she locked eyes with Jason, who stood frozen, the reality of her actions began to sink in. She hadn't just called into question a wedding, she had called into question an entire facade that had long been accepted without scrutiny. "What are you doing?" Jason spat, his eyes wide with fury. Anger flashed across his face as he stepped toward her, demanding answers that he clearly didn't want to hear. She could feel the tension forming a barrier between them, a wall built by privilege and consequence. People are hurting. She cried, her voice trembling with emotion. Look at what's happening in Maplewood. Look at what your family has done. It's not just business, it's our lives. The words poured out as if they had been bottled up inside her for too long. Around her, people shifted uncomfortably, some whispering amongst themselves, others looking away. Sarah felt the teetering precipice of change beneath her feet. Would they choose to listen, or fall back into complacency? Aren't you ashamed? A voice rose. It was Mrs. Whitmore, Jason's mother, her prim attire contrasting with the venom in her tone. This is a celebration, not a platform for your grievances. Sarah felt the sting of those words. They were meant to shame her, to push her back into the shadows. But the voices of the vulnerable stirred behind her, fueling her fire. This wedding is a lie. Sarah shot back, her voice louder now. You can't justify your wealth at the expense of others. My family, my friends, they're losing their homes. This isn't just gossip, it's our truth. The truth can't stay hidden any longer. For a moment, silence enveloped the space. Then, a ripple of acceptance began, echoing from the back of the crowd, slowly rising to a chorus of nods and murmurs. People were sharing glances, hearts and minds realigning in a way that sparked electricity among them. What if she's right? Someone whispered, another voice murmured in agreement. The realization hit like a wave crashing onto the shore, eroding the reputation built on coercion and deception. Jason clenched his fists, caught between fury and comprehension. You don't know what you're talking about, he retorted, but his voice lacked conviction. The weight of uncertainty was creeping in, turning his anger into panic. That it was the first crack in his facade, and Sarah could sense it. You have the power to change this, she urged, stepping closer, voice softening yet firm. Together we can take a stand. We can't let this cycle of exploitation continue. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes. For once, she felt seen, heard neither the maid nor the invisible one, but a voice that demanded respect. As the crowd began to murmur more fervently, a familiar face emerged from the back. Olivia, one of Sarah's closest friends and a living sign of the struggle against the Whitmore family's influence. She stared at Sarah with a hesitant determination, eyebrows raised, almost daring her to push forward. Are you with us? Olivia asked, her voice filled with genuine hope. In that moment, Sarah knew this was their chance. But what would happen next? Would Jason embrace a new understanding, or would he fight to keep his old world intact? And more importantly, would their community gather the courage to confront the truth together, or would they shy away from the change they craved? The air held its breath, waiting for an answer that could shape their lives. As the eyes of the crowd focused on Sarah, longing for direction, she sensed the destiny of Maplewood shifting beneath them all. Would they seize this pivotal moment, or let it slip away? The tension in the air crackled as everyone waited for Jason's response. His face twisted in a mix of denial and concern. It was as if he was grappling with the two worlds he had always known, his sheltered existence of privilege and the harsh reality that Sarah boldly unveiled before the crowd. Sarah, stop. His voice rose again, but there was a hint of desperation now. You're going too far. This is not the time or place. But is it ever the right time? She shot back, heart pounding wildly. Look around you. Your friends are here, dressed for a celebration, while families like mine struggle just to make ends meet. This isn't about a wedding anymore, it's about freedom, dignity. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. People who had leaned in to hear her now stood straighter, emboldened by her words. Whispers became nods and whispers turned into soft declarations of agreement. Maybe she has a point, someone ventured, while another added, for once, we need to think about what this really means. Jason's jaw tightened, and for a moment, he looked at Sarah as if he didn't recognize her. You think you know what's best. You're just stirring up trouble. You're ruining everything. Am I? She countered, voice steady despite the upheaval inside her. Maybe it's time someone did. Maybe it's time we all take responsibility for our choices and the impact they have. Mrs. Whitmore's face contorted in fury. You've lost your mind, Sarah. My son deserves to be happy, and your words are just destructive. Destructive? Sarah couldn't help but laugh, a bitter sound. What's truly destructive is turning a blind eye while your family makes profit from the misery of others. You've built your happiness on the backs of those who are suffering. Jason stepped forward, fists clenched at his sides. You think you can just barge into my wedding and change everything? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. Sarah shouted, taking a step closer, her chest heaving with emotion. This isn't just your wedding, it's the symbol of everything that's wrong. If this is what happiness looks like for you, then we need to redefine happiness. The crowd shifted again, their murmurs now filled with determination. They looked at Jason, waiting. Would he fight for what he had known, or would he listen to the whispers of his past? Realizing the larger fight at hand, Olivia stepped forward, bravery igniting in her eyes as she shouted, "What's more important, Jason? This wedding or real change? You can be a part of something bigger than yourself." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Jason's eyes darted around, the realization dawning that everyone was looking to him. As if seeing them for the first time, their shared burdens, their struggles, his expression morphed. And then, a voice from the back rang out, a soft tremor in it. "We deserve better than this, don't we?" It was Marcy, a neighbor who had just lost her job, stepping forward with a fragile sense of purpose. "Yes." Another voice echoed. "We deserve better." The cries grew louder, a chorus of shared pain and dreams melding into a resounding declaration. Sarah stood tall, a beacon amidst the gathering storm. Jason was caught. The wave of community resolve pressed in around him, and in that moment, everything hung on the precipice of change. His eyes glimmered with confusion, and then something deeper, a flicker of understanding, began to replace his bewilderment. But as he took a deep breath, struggling to find the words that could either bridge or deepen this divide, the doors to the venue burst open. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the bright light filtering in from outside, a man wearing the unmistakable uniform of a foreclosure agent. The gasp that rippled through the crowd could have silenced a stadium. What now? Sarah thought, fear sinking like a stone in her gut. Would the revelation of Jason's family's secrets be enough to dismantle the empire they had built, or would it only further entrench them in denial? The answer lay ahead, and as the crowd braced for whatever came next, Sarah wondered if they were ready for the truth. What would unfold now in the face of this dramatic interruption? The agent stepped forward, the crisp lines of his uniform stark against the festive decor of the venue. He surveyed the crowd with a knowing gaze, one that seemed to pierce through the tension thickening the air. Anxiety rippled through everyone, a collective holding of breath, as if the very atmosphere was leaning in to hear what would come next. Jason's face drained of color, his mouth opening slightly as he barely whispered, "No. Not now." It was as if the walls around him were starting to close in, the happiness of the day evaporating into an uncertain fog. The man cleared his throat. "I'm here on official business," he stated, his voice gravelly yet authoritative. "This estate has been subject to foreclosure proceedings. Your family has failed to meet specific obligations." Every word he uttered felt like a heavy stone dropped into the turbulent waters of the moment. Gasps broke out among the guests. Murmurs grew louder, rising to a crescendo of disbelief and curiosity. People exchanged shocked looks. For a moment, all the excitement of the wedding faded, swallowed by the weight of the man's words. "You can't do this." Jason shot back, his fists still clenched, but now trembling slightly. "Not today. Not here." "Yes, I can," came the reply, unflinching. "This is a legal matter. All lines of communication have been ignored. I can no longer turn a blind eye. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She had come to the wedding with a mission, to speak the truth, and now it seemed fate was placing the very evidence of that truth in front of them all. A sense of surreal satisfaction mixed with the uncertainty of what this meant for Jason. As the whispers morphed into outrage, Olivia grabbed Jason's arm. "This is exactly what we were talking about." Her voice rang with authority. "This laughter of luxury and celebration can't continue while the community crumbles beneath it." "Stop!" Jason shouted again, but this time filled with anger and desperation. "You don't understand how hard my family has worked to keep everything afloat." "Hard work?" Sarah shouted back, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You built your empire on the backs of others who struggle every day to survive. Is it hard work when it comes at the expense of others?" The crowd was now a storm of emotion. They were no longer passive observers in the unfolding drama, they were stirring to life, connecting the dots that had long been ignored. Marcy, who had once hesitated to speak out, now raised her voice. "Like many of us, I've lost my job. How can we pretend everything is fine when people like us are fighting tooth and nail?" Jason looked around, seeking solace in his friends, but their supportive stares had shifted to expressions filled with conflict. It felt as though his entire world was unspooling. "Mom, can we?" Jason's voice cracked slightly. "Can we talk about this somewhere else?" But the agent stepped forward with a steely determination. "There's nothing to discuss. The court has made a decision. I'm here to enforce it." Jason suddenly felt a shift deep within him, a crack forming in the walls he had built around his life. "This isn't just about me anymore, is it?" He whispered more to himself than anyone else. In that moment of realization, something clicked. The weight of the responsibilities he had ignored pressed down upon him, demanding acknowledgement. Could he turn his back on this reckoning? The crowd held its breath as Jason stood there, his expression caught between defiance and an emerging sense of understanding. But just as he was about to say something, the sound of a phone vibrating in his pocket broke the silence. Instinctively, he pulled it out, his heart racing, and froze as he saw the name lighting up the screen: his mother. The tension thickened again, and Sarah felt the impending weight of another truth about to surface. Why had she called now? What did she want to say? Would it fortify Jason's resolve or shatter his already fragile understanding? As he hesitated, the crowd leaned in, hanging on his every move. The stage was set for a revelation that could change everything. The phone vibrated again, a frantic dance against Jason's palm. He stared at the screen, his thoughts a tangle of dread and confusion. A part of him wanted to ignore the call. What could she possibly say that would soften this moment? But another part, a part that had buried too much for too long, knew he had to answer. With trembling fingers, he accepted the call, bringing the phone to his ear. "Mom." The word felt fragile, a thread hanging by a skittish knot. "Jason," her voice cut through the noise, strained and filled with urgency. "You need to come home. We need to talk." The juxtaposition of her tone against the chaos around him was jarring. The agent stood firm, glaring at Jason, while guests whispered among themselves, caught in a whirlwind of gossip and judgment. "Now," he managed to say, disbelief coloring his response. "Can't it wait?" "I'm at a wedding." "Not this wedding," she interrupted, her voice sharp and insistent. "You don't understand, Jason. Everything is unraveling. You were right to want to shield them from the truth, but it's time to face it. Together." His heart pounded harder. Was this the moment he dreaded? The moment when everything would be laid bare? Surrounding conversations muted, he felt pulled into a tunnel, the crowd fading to a blur. What truth? His voice was wary, edged with frustration. "The financial mess, it's worse than I let on. The foreclosure is only the beginning. You need to listen." He wanted to scream, wanted to lash out at her for hiding this before. "You should have told me." But his anger fizzled against a new worry: what if this wasn't just about them? What if it implicated everyone he cared about? I'll be there, he said finally, the weight of inevitability heavy in his chest. He hung up and looked around. The faces staring back at him were demanding an answer, a resolution to the chaos this day had turned into. The agent crossed his arms, clearly impatient. Time is up, Jason. We need to proceed, he said, the words dropping like a hammer. No. Jason shouted, desperation clawing at him. You can't just take everything away. Not today, not here. There was an ember of rebellion growing within him. A voice he didn't know he had started to emerge, fueled by the experience and pain of those around him. Then Sarah stepped forward, her face fierce and steady. What if we didn't let you? What if we fought back? Her words rang out like a rallying cry. An idea sparked in Jason's mind, an idea of resistance. As rage met clarity, seeing the people he cared about, he took a deep breath. We could stand together, couldn't we? Make them listen. The crowd seemed to stir. He could feel the ripple of solidarity amidst the chaos. Yes. Someone shouted from the back, followed by a collective murmur of encouragement. Voices joined together, creating a tapestry of hope and determination. Just then, the whispers turned into shouts. More faces emerged from the crowd, rallying around Jason. We're done standing aside. Stand with him. They echoed as if emboldened by his call to fight, but as he started to feel the swell of courage, Jason noticed his grandmother's frail figure at the edge of the gathering, her expression a painful mix of worry and sadness. Jason, she called softly, and in that one word, he heard all the fears of family, of those he loved, about everything that was crumbling around them. Was it really the right moment to turn back and forth between his family and the fight for a community that had felt abandoned for too long? As Jason's thoughts swirled, he realized the stakes were climbing higher. All he wanted was to protect those he loved, but it was becoming clear the fight wasn't just his to bear. He squared his jaw, feeling empowered yet lost. How could he lead them to battle without tearing his family apart even further? His heart raced as he faced both the crowd and the demons within. Would he boldly take that first step toward truth, or would he turn and flee the very fight that awaited him? With the crowd looking at him for guidance, and his family's impending truths looming, the crossroads of passion and loyalty lay before him. What would he choose? Jason scanned the crowd, his pulse thrumming in rhythm with the escalating tension. Each face reflected a mix of hope and fear, eagerly awaiting his next move. The chant reverberated in his ears, a blend of encouragement woven with desperation. Their faith in him felt heavy, like a warm blanket lifted just as it started to smother. Stand with me? He questioned, more to himself than to anyone else. The words hung in the air, tangible, meaningful. Could he really stand against the tide of uncertainty that threatened to wash everything away? His grandmother pressed her fingers to her lips, her eyes shimmering with unspoken words. Jason felt his resolve waver. How could he pull this family into a fight without risking more than he could afford? Jason. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, urgent and unwavering. You're not alone. We're all in this together. He met her gaze, and for a moment, the fear skittered away, replaced by the fire of purpose that ignited in his chest. You're right, he breathed, we're in this together. The crowd roared in agreement. Power surged through him, feeding off their collective determination. It gave him the courage to step forward. Enough. He shouted, his voice firm. We're not going to let anyone steal our future. Not today. Not ever. A wave of applause erupted, empowering him further. Despite the noise, the tension in his gut tangled painfully around thoughts of family and impending disgrace. But at that moment, as he stood in front of everyone who had gathered, fueled by a mix of hope and duty, he realized that his path might not be clear, but he wouldn't take it alone. But just as he felt the swell of unity, the agent's sneering demeanor broke through the euphoria. You think shouting will change anything? You're just prolonging the inevitable, Jason. You won't win this fight. Jason clenched his fists, defiance surging. "Maybe not in the way you think," he replied, his voice steady. "But I can make you listen." And then he saw it, a flicker of doubt cross the agent's face, just for a moment. Perhaps they could make them listen, perhaps they could push back enough to push their own story forward. "Let us have a conversation," Jason continued, his words flowing as if carving a new path. "We're not these faceless problems you're trying to erase. We're people. We matter." Cheers erupted, and he could see the agent's composure shifting. The crowd's unity seemed to shift the ground beneath them, giving him strength and clarity. "Jason!" shouted a voice from the back. It was one of his childhood friends, Mark, his loyalty shining through the crowd. "Let us get faces to this fight. Let us march to City Hall and show them we won. Back down. That's it." Jason felt the energy boosting him, a whirlwind of determination swirling around. "Let us show them just what we're made of." Suddenly, the spiraling emotions turned into something collective. The crowd, emboldened, started pouring out of the venue, faces set toward their destination. He felt relief wash over him, but as he turned toward the exit, the memory of his grandmother's worried gaze pulled at him again. What about her? Yet there wasn't time to think, not with momentum surging at their backs. "Are you coming, Jason?" Sarah's voice cut through his inner turmoil, urging him forward. With a final glance at his grandmother, he recalled the purpose that led him here. "I have to do this," he whispered, then turned to Sarah. "I'm ready." They stepped into the chaotic embrace of the outside world, the march ahead bolder than any single step he could have imagined. But as they moved forward, Jason felt an uncertain knot in his stomach, a deep-rooted anxiety gnawing at him. What truths would they uncover? And at what cost? As they pressed onward, a question loomed larger than ever: could he truly face the truth without losing everything he held dear? Jason moved through the crowd, a surge of adrenaline carrying him forward as shouts and cheers danced through the air. The faces surrounding him were a blend of determination and fear, a tapestry woven from shared dreams and unspoken worries. He could feel it, the need to fix everything, to move mountains with the power of their unity. "Keep moving," Sarah shouted, her hand wrapping firmly around his wrist. She pulled him slightly, sparking a rush of warmth that pushed away the chill of uncertainty. He glanced back, meeting his grandmother's eyes one last time. Her worry loomed in his thoughts, but he took a breath, forcing himself to stay focused. The streets were alive with energy, filled with purpose, an undercurrent of chaos urging them on. "We're making history, Jason," Mark shouted, enthusiasm bursting from him as they reached the front of the crowd. "They can't ignore us if we're right here." Jason nodded, heart racing. "Let us make sure they understand this is about our lives." The sound of their footsteps echoed, rising and falling like waves crashing on a shore. People waved signs, their messages painted boldly in bright colors: "We are more than statistics. Don't erase our lives." The power of their resolve wrapped around Jason like a warm embrace, lifting his spirit higher. As they approached City Hall, the imposing building loomed ahead, a symbol of their struggle and defiance. It felt unreal, and yet here they were together, all of them. The tension crackled in the air, an electric energy that made him both anxious and proud. "Anyone got a megaphone?" A voice shouted from the back, and Jason turned to see a few friends racing to find one. "We need to make sure our voices reach every corner." "Right. We're not here to whisper," Jason called out, feeling the fire ignite once more in his belly. He thought of his family, of his grandmother's cracked voice, remembering the struggles of their past. Their fight had always been for a future worth living. They reached the steps of City Hall, and the crowd began to gather, forming a semicircle. Jason took a deep breath, his heart pounding as he stepped up onto the first step, making sure everyone could see him. "We stand up here as a community," he declared, his voice rising over the din, "a community that refuses to be silenced any longer." Cheers erupted, and for a heartbeat, he felt invincible. But then, in the back of his mind, a worry lingered: was his voice enough? Look to your left and right, everyone, he said, his voice softer now. These are your neighbors, your friends. We are not alone. We have each other, and together, we can't be ignored. But before he could continue, a sharp voice cut through the air, rising above the cheers. You really think you can pressure change with this little stunt? The agent stood at the bottom of the steps, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. Jason's heart sank. We won't be intimidated, he shouted back, but doubt crept in. Intimidated? The agent laughed mockingly, shaking his head. You're nothing but a fleeting moment. When the dust settles, you'll still be just a footnote. Jason could feel the crowd's energy shift, a mix of confusion and anger rippling through them. Memories of his grandmother's kitchen, the urgent conversations about resilience and the family unit rushed into his mind. What would she say about this? Listen. Jason shouted, stepping down from the step to the edge of the crowd, his voice filled with sincerity. If we just sit back and let them dictate our lives, we lose everything that makes us who we are. But as the crowd buzzed with emotion, Jason felt something deep inside him break open. What if he failed? What if they didn't listen after all? Let us show them who we are. He rallied, trying to regain the momentum. We won't be erased. But as he faced the agent once more, an unexpected chill gripped him. Would their voices truly be enough to drown out the looming threats, or would they be swept away in the tide of apathy? His heart raced, but in the back of his mind, one question burned brighter than any other: what if this was only the beginning of uncovering a truth far more devastating than they dared to imagine? Jason's breath quickened as the agent's words echoed in his mind. Silence crept over the crowd like a heavy blanket. Faces that were once animated now wore expressions of concern, their eyes darting from the agent to him, searching for reassurance. He had always believed in the strength of collective voices, but now doubt nipped at his heels. He couldn't stand there faltering. He had to push through. He stepped forward, his heart pounding in time with the rising chorus of anxiety. Everyone, look at me. He shouted, his voice cutting through the silence with determination. We are not just here for today. We are here for our families, our communities, and our future. We have the power to bring about change. The crowd began to stir again, hope flickering back to life. A few voices chimed in with supportive shouts, and that small spark ignited a wave of energy that surged through the group. People raised their signs higher, some began chanting, "We are more than statistics." The chant rolled off their tongues, rhythmic and unyielding. Jason closed his eyes briefly, taking a moment to soak in the energy radiating from the sea of faces. Each one told a story, a struggle, a dream, and right there in that moment, they were sharing it with him. Then the agent stepped forward, his face contorted with disdain. You really think shouting makes you heard? People like you are a dime a dozen, another fleeting group making noise. He leaned in closer, eyes dark and challenging. After today, nobody will remember your names. No one will care. But Jason wasn't about to back down. Anger ignited within him, a fuel pushing him toward conviction. He would not let the agent define them, would not let their story fade into the background. Then let us make them remember. He shouted back, his voice rising above the agent's sneer. We will not be silenced. We are fighting for our lives, our dignity. This isn't a stunt, this is our existence. The crowd roared back, a tidal wave of passion and belief. Jason felt the power coursing through them, their faith igniting his spirit. He turned to see familiar faces, friends and strangers united in purpose, each of them a lifeline pulling him away from despair. Together, we can be a force that no one can ignore. Let them try to dismiss us. Let them try to erase us. We will not go quietly. A wave of thunderous applause erupted, echoing through the streets. The agent's face paled, and for a moment, he stumbled back as if struck. It's time to show the world that we matter. Jason called out, his heart filled with renewed determination. He glanced over the crowd, locking eyes with Sarah, Mark, and a few others he had only just met. Each of them held the weight of their lives and stories, all interwoven into the fabric of this moment. Then came a voice from the back, trembling yet resolute. I lost my home. This fight is about more than just us. A young woman stepped forward, her hands trembling, but her expression fierce. They need to hear us. A ripple of agreement spread like wildfire through the crowd, transforming tentative murmurs into a unified roar. The energy surged higher, electric and alive, wrapping around Jason like a shield. Just as he began to sense victory, the agent spoke again, his voice dripping with malice. Think about what you're risking. You think you can disrupt the status quo without consequences? Jason's spirit wavered once more, but he pushed the thought aside. I think we're already living with the consequences of silence. He shouted back, the truth reverberating in the faces of those around him. What do we have to lose if we don't stand up? But even as the crowd responded, Jason's mind raced. What if this was just the beginning of challenging everything they thought they knew? In that moment, uncertainty lay heavy in the air. Was he truly prepared for what lay ahead? Would they uncover deeper truths that would shake the very foundations of their fight? As the crowd continued to chant, Jason felt the weight of responsibility resting on his shoulders. This was new territory, and with each heartbeat, he realized he couldn't turn back now. His voice strong, he called out, let us stand together, let us prove them wrong. For every life they dismiss, we'll raise two voices. But even as hope flourished, a looming question haunted Jason's thoughts: what would happen if he had to face the truth hidden beneath the surface? The crowd pulsed with energy, a living organism fueled by determination and hope. Jason stood tall, feeling his heartbeat synchronize with the frantic rhythm of the chants reverberating around him. Each voice layered atop the other, creating a tapestry of sound that was impossible to ignore. But even in the midst of this chaotic fervor, doubt crept back in. What if this was just a moment, an echo lost to the winds of time? He glanced at the agent, still lurking at the edges of their revolution, his expression a mask of barely veiled contempt. Jason's resolve hardened. Why do we let their words frighten us? He shouted, eyes scanning the crowd again. This isn't just about standing up to them, whoever they think they are. This is about standing up for everyone who has ever felt voiceless. A woman nearby, holding a sign that read "We are more than statistics," stepped forward, her face alight with newfound bravery. I almost didn't come today because I thought it wouldn't matter, she confessed, her voice shaking. But look at how many of us are here. We are the change. The realization sparked like dry kindling. Jason took a deep breath, feeling warmth spread in his chest. Exactly. He exhaled, feeling the momentum shift massively in their favor. We are stronger together. Our stories matter. Each one of us has the power to make somebody listen. The emotions within the crowd swelled, echoing back with supportive cries and cheers. People hugged, clasped hands, tears gathering at the corners of their eyes. It all began to feel bigger than he had imagined, a tidal wave of transformation. And those who seek to silence us? Jason pressed on. They're only revealing their deepest fear: our unity. Our resistance. They fear that we won't vanish quietly, that we will rise and demand what should have always been ours. The agent's thin disguise of control began to crack. He shifted on his feet, red-faced and sweaty. Jason watched as some in the crowd muttered under their breath, gesturing toward the man as if they were issuing a challenge. Together, we can share our truths. Jason cried, hoping to spark yet another fire in the audience. A chorus of yes erupted around him. Let everyone hear the fight we're fighting. Let us make them understand our pain and our power. Before long, voices began to fill in with raw stories about homes lost, families torn apart, futures dimmed. Jason felt the tide of personal revelations wash over them, making the moment a raw, collective confession that brought gasps, laughter, and tears. Then, out from the shadows stepped a familiar face: Mark, a friend who had always stood by him. I used to think we were all alone, just shouting into the dark. But this. He gestured wildly to the sea of faces uniting in this fight. This is light. This is hope. Jason's heart swelled. In that expanse of unity, he saw a flicker of his dreams, a vision of what their fight could produce. But just as the momentum reached a crescendo, the agent's voice sliced through again, sharper than before. You think your little spectacle means anything? You're play acting at a revolution, just another day in the sun for you crybabies. The crowd paused, caught in the crossfire of emotion. Anger surged through them again, knitting together more tightly than before. Jason faced the agent confidently. We're no longer afraid of being dismissed. You don't get to decide if we matter. The tension in the air was palpable, charged with a dangerous energy that echoed both vulnerability and raw defiance. In that moment, Jason realized why this fight mattered so much. It wasn't just for today, but to redefine the stories written about them. He took a step forward again, adrenaline racing through him. Change doesn't come easy, he shouted, lifting his arms, encouraging their voices to rise even higher. But standing together, we can achieve the impossible. Yet even as the crowd echoed in agreement and rallied behind him, Jason felt a tremor of unease. The agent's reaction could change everything. As he locked eyes with Mark, an indescribable tension passed between them. What consequences awaited them now, out there in those streets? With the crowd pacing excitedly, Jason felt that familiar twist in his gut, the feeling of impending chaos just waiting to surface. Was this truly the moment they would change the course of their fight, or had they only scratched the surface of what was at stake? And with every pulse of energy vibrating through him, he knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The atmosphere crackled with energy, a delicious tension swirling around them as they stood at the precipice of change. Jason felt an electric pulse race through him, whipping up the fervor of the crowd surrounding him. Voices that had previously felt small now unified into an anthem of resistance, drowning out the doubt of the agent standing defiantly at the sidelines. This is it. Jason shouted, desperately feeding off the momentum growing around him. They can try to silence us, but together, we can rise. With those words, he took a step closer, his heart hammering, aware that the choice of his next move would echo through every life in that crowd. The agent glared at him, and Jason caught a glimpse of fear mixed with disbelief in his eyes. It was rare to see someone so conditioned to power face the threat of something more potent: community. Jason allowed himself a moment of silent victory. Wasn't this the battle they had all been fighting? Not just for today, but for a future where their voices would not fade into silence but ring loud enough to be heard by those in power. A loud cheer erupted behind him, prompting him to continue. Look to your left. Look to your right. We are standing shoulder to shoulder. Your neighbor, your friend, the person you see every day, they need you. You need them. Together we are stronger. He noticed families holding on to each other, friends clasping hands, faces turning toward him, eyes bright with determination. Not just an audience, but a living, breathing organism fueled by hope and yearning for justice. Let me hear your voices. He bellowed, sensing how much they needed to be united in their aim. The crowd roared back, a wave of sound that resonated through the air like thunder. He felt every cheer ripple through him, bolstering his resolve, but the agent wasn't finished. You think an empty chant will save you? You're standing on borrowed time. Jason's heart hitched in his chest, but he pressed on. Maybe those words will be written in history. You call it empty, but we call it a beginning. What you see as a moment of weakness, we see as a catalyst for change. The energy shifted, blooming in the air like wildflowers pushing through concrete. The movement surged again, voices lifted higher. It wasn't merely shouting back at the agent, it transformed into a rallying cry urging hope and resilience, a chance to rewrite the story that had long gone unchallenged. A voice cut through the crowd, empowered. This isn't just about us. It's about those who have come before us and those who will come after. It was Marcy, who Jason had once worried might have stayed silent. But she stepped forward, vulnerability painted on her face. We deserve to thrive, not just survive. Our children deserve hope. He couldn't help but marvel at her bravery. Each story shared nudged the momentum forward, each person stepping out from the shadows. Hope was spreading like wildfire. Jason turned toward the agent, unyielding. You see us as just another blip, another fleeting moment? Well, you're wrong. Together, we are the very foundation of this community. We're not here to play games, we're here to rewrite the narrative. At that, laughter bubbled from the crowd, each person recognizing the irony and hopelessness dissipating under the weight of unity. The agent stumbled, a flicker of uncertainty flaring in his eyes, then Jason whipped around, inspired by the sight of his friends ready to rally around the cause. Let us take this energy. Let us march. Let us show our city what is possible when we come together. They roared in agreement, a blend of excitement and fear transforming into unwavering resolve, and so, the march began, a living river of solidarity moving through the streets, with Jason at the forefront, guided by the collective heartbeat of his town. As they walked, Jason felt lighter somehow. It was more than just about urging change, it was about embracing the strength derived from their shared experiences, but somewhere deep down, uncertainty lingered. Would marching down those streets shatter the power dynamics or ignite something more severe? Would they be met with resistance, or would they finally be heard? Then came the waterworks, lit up by emotions running high, tears spilled, realizing that vulnerability could bloom into strength. They pulled together stories of loss and struggle and laughter, each voice added to the tapestry of their movement. They stormed City Hall, fists raised triumphantly, passion echoing in every shout of "We matter. We are here." But that gnawing worry still sat in Jason's gut. Could one march ignite true change, or was it just the beginning of a more significant battle fighting for their dignity? As they reached City Hall, the enormous stone structure loomed over them. It was more than just a building, it represented authority, fear, and potentially turning the tide over crashing waves of injustice. Taking a deep breath, Jason absorbed it all, the tears, the anger, the determination. He felt history pushing behind him, waiting for him to rise up. Together, we'll make them listen, he proclaimed, gathering his strength. They would hold their ground, and all that uncertainty, it would not define them. And just then, as he peered into the eyes of his neighbors, he felt a shift, a spark igniting everything in its path. The unknown stretched ahead, they could either sit in despair or ignite a fire that could reshape their world. In that moment, Jason knew, they were ready for this fight. He felt the tremor of their individuality coming together, culminating into roaring unity, and he couldn't wait to see just how far it could take them. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. So lean in and make your voice heard. Remember, it all starts with each of us saying, "This is my story." And if you truly believe in supporting this channel, now is the moment. Subscribe immediately to never miss out on these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, you know it matters. Comment below with your favorite part of this journey, your reactions, and your dreams for change, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to feel the power of transformation. Together, we can spread this message far and wide.